Afghans not have a little bit of fun? In New Delhi, Rika Roy for NDTV.
Well, that's a wrap on India Matters. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, only weeks to go for the big Bihar election. And that's why Maria comes up next with the big dust-up that's going on over there over the poll revision.
Yes, that's right. And Shiv, there are several layers in that story. And perhaps that's what we will be decoding tonight. Hello, everyone. This is The Last Word. And I am Maria Shakil. First up on the show tonight is the big showdown in Bihar before the battle for votes. It is the fight for voters. The revision of voters list has set the opposition against the Election Commission. And now they have approached the Supreme Court. The apex court will be taking that case up, the petitions up on Thursday. Next on the show, Donald Trump's much anticipated announcement on tariffs, what it will mean for the world and India. That is coming up at 1:30. But first on the show tonight, the Election Commission's exercise of revision of electoral rolls in Bihar just 3 months ahead of the assembly elections has now reached the Supreme Court. The Election Commission continues to defend its move, saying that no changes have been made in the revision as is being rumoured. The opposition mahagathbandhan parties have filed petitions calling the entire exercise discriminatory, unreasonable and arbitrary. In fact, a call for bandh, Bihar bandh, has been given by RJD leader and leader of opposition in Bihar Assembly, Tejaswi Yadav, for 9th of July. Tonight, we put the spotlight on an electoral exercise that is raising questions. First up, let's listen in to what Tejaswi said.
हमारा ये मांग है कि इस काम को ही रोक दिया जाए, चुनाव के बाद जो है इस काम को जारी किया जाए, क्योंकि अब 18 दिन रह गया है, अभी भी इतनी शिकायतें हैं। ज़रा चुनाव आयोग बीएलओ से बात करे, कितना बीएलओ गाली खा रहा है, घर टू घर जा रहा है तो, और बीएलओ से पूछे कि गरीबों के पास कौन कौन से डॉक्यूमेंट्स हैं, उसलिए इस काम को रोक दिया जाए। हम लोग सब लोग जो है, कई लोग जो है कोर्ट का दरवाज़ा हम लोगों ने खटखटाया है, वहाँ भी अपनी बात को कोर्ट के समक्ष जो है हम लोग रखेंगे।
This entire exercise, ladies and gentlemen, is being carried out in the name of special intensive revision of the electoral rolls, a first of its kind drive in over 2 decades. But here's what's worrying. This exercise is being conducted under a narrow lens of scrutiny with rules that appear arbitrary. Let me break this down for you. First question, why now? Why is the first such revision since 2003 being carried out barely 4 months before the crucial state elections? What is the urgency and what is the intent is the question that we ask. Because the entire burden of proof has now shifted to the voters. Voters whose names do not feature in the 2003 list are now being asked to furnish proof of birth and citizenship. Why should ordinary citizens prove their right to vote all over again? Remember, they just voted in the Lok Sabha polls that were held a few months ago. Selective documentation is another concern now. Why are only 11 documents considered valid for this verification? And why is Aadhaar, which is linked to bank accounts, welfare schemes, and often used as a de facto ID across the country, suddenly deemed insufficient? That's a question that several in Bihar are asking right now. And what is evident is that a state which has perhaps one of the highest rates of out-migration in the country, this is going to be seen as a blow to the migrant workers, because has the Election Commission made any logistical provisions to ensure migrant workers who are away from their home are not arbitrarily excluded? So, the question is this disenfranchisement in the name of cleanup? Shouldn't electoral reforms aim to expand inclusion, not shrink the voter base? Can voter roll revision become a tool of voter suppression? Let's be clear, ladies and gentlemen. Any move that potentially erases legitimate voters, especially the poor, the mobile, and the marginalized, cannot be brushed aside as routine cleanup, because democracy begins with the vote. And if the vote itself is under scrutiny, so must be those who oversee it. Joining me on the show tonight, we have R.P. Singh, spokesperson of the BJP, O.P. Rawat, former CEC of India, Sanjay Kumar is professor of CSDS, and Ravi Shankar Ravi is the spokesperson of RJD. O.P. Rawat, lots of questions being raised, and many would say these are legitimate questions. While there is an explanation as to why the Aadhaar card is not being in that list of 11, but the entire exercise and the time of this exercise is raising that suspicion in the minds of voters. So,
yeah, true. But before every election, Election Commission is mandated to align the electoral roll with reference to the eligibility date of those people who become 18 years of age, means eligible to vote. Now, this amendment which took place recently makes eligibility date, instead of 1st January alone, 1st April, 1st July, 1st October. And therefore, for Bihar election, the electoral roll should have all those people who complete 18 years on 1st of October 25. And for that, a revision was necessary. Either Election Commission could have gone for summary revision, which has been the case for last 20 years, or intensive revision, which they have decided to do. Now, issue comes about citizenship. Aadhaar card is not a proof of citizenship. It is only proof of the year you were born and the ordinary residence there.
But
so
sir, my question is, just few months ago when the Lok Sabha polls happened, this exercise should have been carried out before that. Why now?
That is Election Commission's discretion. I said, before every election, Election Commission has to go through either summary revision or intensive revision. They have to do it. They cannot do without a revision, unless the elections are being held within 3 months of 1st January. That is the thing. So they had to have a revision.
Sanjay Kumar, the opposition says, and they have filed this petition before the Supreme Court, that this entire order is discriminatory, unreasonable, and arbitrary, and it violates Article 1421 of the Indian Constitution. And it goes on to reason that how this state called Bihar, and a state which I so dearly love because I am from the state, Bihar suffers from the lowest literacy with 61.8% literate population as compared with the national average of nearly 73%. Bihar has the lowest per capita income. Bihar is also home to the highest number of migrant workers. So there are challenges in the state. That is the reason why the opposition, many would say, is legitimate in questioning that shouldn't the Biharis have been given much more time before this entire exercise, which is generating that mass fear.
I have no doubt what you have mentioned, Maria. These are the factors, because you can't expect all these people, and you have mentioned that there are a very large number of illiterate people. There are a large number of people who live below poverty line, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe people. So these are the people who are struggling in their day-to-day life. They don't possess the kind of documents which are being required to prove citizenship, to prove your citizenship, ordinary place of living. So that's why the questions are being raised, and all these documents are to be produced in a month's time. The time is short, and the documents which are required are not easy to get in a month's time. You have already mentioned that this is a state where a very large number of people are migrants. People are living in other places, Delhi, Mumbai, Surat, and various other places. Now, when this is taking place, so people have to rush back. I'm not saying that if they are living permanently in another city, then their name may be registered as a voter in that city, but they may have gone out. So I think it is all being done in a rush. The time is very limited, which is available to the voter, and the document which is required to be produced are not the document which are ordinarily possessed by an ordinary citizen in any state. I think these are the challenges, and that is why the noise is being created.
Okay. Is the BJP completely, not acknowledging the challenges, because this has nothing to do with a particular political party here, RP Singh. It is about the citizens of the state, and these are the voters which vote for you as well.
Well, Maria, you rightly said it's about the citizen of the state. So we have to safeguard the election commission has to safeguard the interest of the citizen of the state. Article 326 says what? Who is the citizen? Constitution stipulates that every person who is citizen of India and who is not less than 18 years of age on qualifying date is not otherwise disqualified under any law shall be entitled to be listed in electoral roll. So if this had to be verified, and it's not happening for the first time. I'm sorry, Sanjay ji, it happened in 2003 also, and it happened in the same period without all this technology happening and all this sort of manpower at that time. Whereas there are more than 1 lakh PLO and 1 lakh assistants, people who are assisting them also. I was just calculating the total figure. Obviously, before 2003, there are almost 60% of the household which will be under 2003, and after 2003, there will be almost 40%. And if a single one BLO goes to 5 houses every day, just 5, mean he will deal with 25 voters in a day. And if you calculate that into the number of BLOs we have, that will come out to 7.75 lakh people. But that's not the number which has had to be gone and met with and whose document has to be put on record. So the problem is not with the timing, problem is not with the process. The problem is because the opposition has no the narrative to go with the election. So they are trying to probably pick this as a narrative for the election. They are trying to pick
because
this as
Bihar has a very high
complete?
migrant population, sir. Is the BJP then making arrangements for the logistics so that these migrants who are in different states can come and undergo this verification, and then they go back, and then they come back during election time? One. Second question is that if the opposition is raising concerns, they are not talking about their vote bank per se. They are saying that all those who have to give, because the burden of proof is now on an individual, not on the state, then it could be any voter, irrespective of the political party. It could be your voter, sir.
Thank you. Maria, every party has a BLA, booth level agent. We have our BLAs in place. I don't know about Congress. Congress would not have, because Congress has no ground there. RJD should have. JDU has the BLAs on ground. So the BLA will ensure that that happens. That they will work out with the BLOs and ensure that every voter is listed and every voter's form is filled and he's part of the enumeration. But only problem is, as I said, is the narrative. Because recently, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, there was a video which is viral. I'll send it to you. Mr. Rahul Gandhi was there in Bihar for some program. He asked a woman that how's the education doing for the children. He said, very good. What are they being taught? Are they being taught English? He said, yes. Then he asked, how do they commute? He said, bicycle. Do they have any knowledge of computer? He said, yes. They are very well versed with computers, and the computer is the subject. So when he got all this from the woman at the ground level, he understood.
Okay.
That
so this is a forced narrative.
Give me another second, please.
Okay,
can I complete?
Let me move now, sir. Ravi Shankar Ravi, this is a forced narrative which you are trying to build.
Maria, please.
You have no other issue to target the government, government of the day on. That Nitish Kumar has run just the perfect government, despite all the reports coming in of lawlessness in the state, despite a businessman having been shot dead. We are to believe that Nitish Kumar is running a completely impeccable government and administration.
Maria, we are the largest democracy, and its election commission, an autonomous and constitutional body, has brought itself into the public scrutiny, and that's why we are discussing this. This is very unfortunate. It has brought ridicule to itself. people will laugh at, the world is laughing at us now. See, and rather than taking up the issues of people, when people feel threatened that their franchise will be compromised by the orders, by the actions and the amendments, that 2 amendments the Election Commission has already made. But BJP is acting as its spokesperson rather than representing the issues and concern of the people. And that's where it made us believe that there is a plot, there is some kind of problem. Either the Election Commission is playing in the hands of BJP or in connivance with BJP. I mean, something is fishy. Because the kinds of documents that are being asked, the most common and easily available documents, and these documents are connected. If you want Aadhaar, you have to take a residence proof. If you want a residence proof, you have to take Aadhaar. If you want ration card, you have to take Aadhaar. If you have to take Aadhaar, give your ration card. I mean, this way, these documents are connected. But what the Election Commission has done, they listed the difficult documents like passport and pension card and matriculation certificate, where so many people do not have. And the most common documents, the Aadhaar card, the ration card, the Manrega card, that is not listed. And 48% of Dalits are, they do not have residence or they are landless. So many workers, registered workers who are working in different states of India, how would they be enrolled in the electoral roll?
Valid point is there. RP Singh, why are you being the spokesperson of the Election Commission?
Maria, I'll appreciate if you allow me to complete. Last time, you just switched over to the RJD spokesperson, and then also you gave quite a good hammering to Nitish Babu's government also. That's your right also. But coming to the issue, just recently, election in Telangana happened. More than 23.41, if I remember, 23 lakh some voters were deleted. Congress welcomed it. He said, very good. They were all fabricated voters. They were all fake voters. And thank you, Election Commission. 5.4 lakh voters from one Hyderabad itself. Only Hyderabad. And so AC also welcomed it that time. This is 2023. That's very recent. So it is just matter of suitability. And also, as I said, there are other modes other than documents. The local BLO can verify by asking the next door neighbor that the person stays here or not. Even that is given as a right. If the person doesn't have any document at all, then he can himself go and testify on a person and ask the neighbors or look for other modes. So there are processes other than that. But as I said, the narrative has to be built up because they know they are losing election. So better is build up a narrative and then try to go around that narrative. Aapka vote kat jayega, you won't be voter there, and you are being intendedly being struck down. And also, when under this grab, do you remember recently Jharkhand election? One of the Congress leaders said, to Rohingyas, aapko bhi gas ka cylinder milega 500 rupees. I promise you. And he mentioned it that even the infiltrators will also get the gas cylinder. So probably they are targeting that as a vote bank because it's on record. They have been targeting that vote bank. Okay. And what's wrong if we can identify Rohingyas and Bangladeshi?
No, this is not about Rohingyas,
because
sir.
Manchal is...
This is not about Rohingyas, sir. Please, I mean, that same narrative of Rohingyas, search of Rohingyas should just end right now. There is a problem because the entire exercise is not being carried out in complete transparency.
Maria, I just now told you, okay, Maria, I give a challenge. I give you a challenge. Please ask your search team to check whether 22 lakh plus voters were deleted from Hyderabad or not, sorry, from Telangana or not.
Okay.
What was the issue then? No one did a word? No one. Give me a second. No, you can't just twist the story as per you.
30 seconds quickly,
More than
Mr. Singh.
5.4 lakh voters. Give me a second, please. Hold it. 5.4 lakh voters were deleted from Hyderabad only. Did anyone utter a word? No, because it suited them that time.
Okay.
It's game of
Perhaps Sanjay
suitability to
Kumar
them.
will be able to
And
answer that.
also,
So
they
it
were making
suits
so much
them-
on human crime in
it suits
Maharashtra.
the- No.
Now,
So it suits the opposition, then it's all right. Otherwise, they don't take up these issues of revision of roles to the Supreme Court. Sanjay Kumar is the argument.
No, I don't think there is issues about, or the big issues about deletion and inclusion. Yes, there are, what RP Singh is saying may be right, because I don't have the correct memory about that. But also, the discussion during last few months have been about the Maharashtra electoral roll, that a very large number of people's names were added to the Maharashtra election roll. I think the problem is that Election Commission has not been able to come out with proof of evidence or clear clarification. Recently, I remember that when Congress, Rahul Gandhi said that electoral roll in Maharashtra are rigged, etc., and Election Commission agreed to make the electoral roll public, but that has not been made. And I remember that Election Commission said, we have sent a letter to Rahul Gandhi 10 days ago, and we have yet to we asked him to come and have a word with us. So if there is a demand for electoral roll to be made public, why Election Commission, what is the hesitation in not making the electoral roll public? The Election Commission mentioned that it was made public before the election, so there is no need to make it public again. I think these are some of the things which is creating a lot of confusion in the mind of political parties, leader, and also common citizen of this country.
Valid points there, O.P. Rawat. Why is the Election Commission not acting and ensuring transparency in this exercise? And if the opposition is raising questions, in fact, when the delegation of opposition parties met the CEC, they came back to say that they were heard, not listened to. So why is the effort not being made by the CEC and the Election Commission to clear the doubts that are being raised here?
Maria, this question should be best put to the current election commissioners and chief election commissioner. What I would like to add here, that the petition which has come to the Honorable realized that because Election Commission said that 2003 electoral roll means everyone included in that is a sitting at remaining 2.7 crores.
Okay. Okay.
Will not be, this 2.9 crore would not find a place unless they get the documents. And therefore, chief.
Sir, there is a problem with your network, Mr. Rawat. So thank you so much for joining us, Sanjay Kumar, Ravi Shankar Ravi, and RP Singh. Joining us now is one of the petitioners in this case in the Supreme Court, Professor Manoj Ja. He's a member of Parliament of the RJD. He's joining us live. Professor Ja, your petition says that this entire exercise is discriminatory, unreasonable, and it violates Article 14 and 21 of the Constitution. The Election Commission, in its defense, of course, has said that, of course, they said it much before the Supreme Court's petition that you have filed, that there is a lot of rumor around this exercise. So in a way, opposition seems to be indulging in rumor mongering, and you are not really understanding the import of this entire exercise.
Maria, I spoke to you 3-4 days back. Point by point, I had raised certain important issues. Point by point, I repeat in a summary form that last exercise was done in 2003. 22 years later, you are repeating it. What was the approach paper, position paper then? Have you made it public? No. You said all decisions shall be taken after the consultation. What kind of consultation took place with political parties? Probably with one political party, the ruling party, not with any other political party. Third, I repeat, Bihar is the most document deficient state. There is data available everywhere in terms of all kinds of certificates. Everybody knows the reality of Bihar. CEC himself said 20% roughly people from Bihar are living outside, and you want them to produce those sacrosanct 11 documents, sacrosanct, which is not concurred either by Article 326 or by Representation of People's Act. I mean, in this kind of atmosphere, what do we make out of it? Is it rumor? Is it rumor that we are asking Election Commission, sir, please hold it for now. Hold it for now. Do it after wider consultation. Why are you denying Aadhaar card? Why are you denying ration card? Why are you denying Manrega job card? I mean, these are the things most commonly available. Now you want somebody who is living in Surat to come between these 20-25 days and then address all the deficiency of the documents. The other day, CEO of Bihar had a advertisement, full-page advertisement across all platforms. It added further chaos. Now, under these kind of circumstances, what we very strongly believe, this is aimed at excluding people. That is why it is arbitrary. It is not transparent. It is not mandated by the will of the people, which could have been seen through the representatives of political parties. I think that's why we approached Honorable Supreme Court. And I repeat, Honorable Supreme Court has been a source of light when the nation feels itself placed in a long, dark tunnel.
Professor Manoj Ja, a couple of points here, because you have raised that point about Aadhaar card again. What is being said is that Aadhaar card is a document of identity, not nationality. And that is the reason why it is not part of those 11 documents. Secondly, with regards to the Election Commission, all the parties, recognized parties, as the statement came in from the CEC, there was an interaction that happened during the last 4 months, and no one was satisfied with the current status of the electoral rolls for one reason or the other, and that is the reason why this exercise was undertaken.
Come on, I mean, this is childlike behavior from Election Commission. I mean, no one was satisfied. You will throw the baby with the bathwater. I mean, that it amounts to saying that you have complained about it, we'll throw the baby with the bathwater. Who is going to suffer, Maria? I'll not suffer, you will not suffer, we'll manage. The suffering shall be of the people who are poor, backward, Dalit, Muslims. They will not be able to meet those requirements in 25 days. What the hell is going to happen? You just held Lok Sabha election. Lok Sabha election on the basis of the same electoral rule. Who is advising you? I have never seen these kind of behavior. I mean, you must understand that democracy thrives when people feel their most sacred right is protected. When exercises like this become a case for exclusion instead of inclusion, and that is happening. 20% of the booths did not have BLOs. The day 24th of June you announced, 25th you started this entire exercise. And look at the fact. There's, one newspaper, 2 newspapers are daily reporting from the kind of problems people are facing. Even then, if Election Commission believes that what they are doing is right, I think there is fundamentally wrong with their approach in their thinking, and I have no qualms in saying that.
Okay, Professor Ja, of course this petition will be taken up by the Supreme Court on Thursday. But before that, the mahagathbandhan parties have announced that they will be taking this battle up on the streets of Bihar. That's why that call has been made for 9th, which will be essentially, the Chakka Jam or Bihar Bandh. But the fact is, sir, that if it is about the people of Bihar, then other political parties should also be raising it, because it's about the voters, and these voters could be for the NDA or the BJP.
Look, first of all, Maria, when we approach the Supreme Court, our concern is Supreme Court will not only hold the process, but also give a direction to the Honorable Election Commission of India by making a fundamental question that who benefits when the poorest of the poor are excluded from an inclusionary exercise, number one. Number two, the 9th July bandh was called a way back. It is nothing new. This item is added to that agenda. It was on account of trade union organizations all over India. They were facing problems. Now with this, average voter, you read today's newspaper, one prominent English daily. He says, contrary to the popular perception, only EBCs and minorities are unsettled. Actually, upper caste, they are also unsettled. Now, if an exercise unsettles people and it creates a kind of havoc, a chaotic situation, Honorable Supreme Court shall certainly step in. I have full faith, number one. Number two, it is no more only political parties' cause. I joined Tejaswi and the entire mahagathbandhan 3 days back when we met the Chief Electoral Officer Bihar. He explained every position, how it is violative of this, how it is violative of this, what all is there in the petition today submitted by us and submitted by others. Now, CEO Bihar cannot take a call on it. It has to be done by Election Commission. We are questioning the haste. We are just telling this exercise could have been much more better had you taken immediately after the Lok Sabha election, or you hold it for now. Start this, but only after due consultation with all political parties once the Bihar elections are over. What do you want political parties to do? They have recruited volunteers. We don't know. They said lakhs of volunteers have been recruited. Who these volunteers are? Are they from a politically affiliated organization? Then the whole purpose gets defeated. Field level officer will decide who is to be included, who is to be excluded. So you leave it to the bias of that field level officer. That's why it is worrisome. It is worrisome to the very idea of free and fair election, level playing field, and right to vote, where each person, one vote, one value, that gets defeated.
Sir Manoj Ja, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us here on NDTV. We are shifting focus to another story now. China has been running a global disinformation campaign against the Rafale in the wake of Operation Sindoor. Not through think tanks or anonymous internet armies, but through official Chinese embassies. French intelligence has blown the lid off a coordinated smear effort right after Operation Sindoor, aimed at painting the Rafale as combat unworthy and pushing Chinese jets as better alternatives to potential buyer nations.
In the high-stakes world of global arms sales, the battle is often fought with messages. French intelligence now says China used its embassies to quietly undermine one of France's most prized exports, the Rafale fighter jet. The controversy follows deadly air combat in May between India and Pakistan following the Pahalgam attack by Islamabad's terror proxies. It was a rare and dangerous escalation between two nuclear-armed neighbors. India deployed its French-made Rafales, Pakistan used Chinese-made jets. What followed, according to French officials, was a coordinated online disinformation blitz. Viral posts, fake videos, even video game clips, all painting Rafales as underperformers and promoting Chinese-made fighters instead. Indonesia has ordered 42 Rafales, but French officials say Beijing is trying to change that, warning of an orchestrated diplomatic effort to smear the jet's credibility and, by extension, France's defense industry. France is fighting back, calling it a targeted disinformation campaign meant not just to hurt arms deals, but to chip away at France's influence in Asia. So far, the French-built fighter remains a symbol of prestige and power, but in today's world, even jets are vulnerable to digital dogfights. An NDTV Bureau Report.
On that note, we are slipping into a short break. Coming up would be all eyes are at this point on US President Donald Trump, who's expected to drop another tariff bombshell that will be coming out any moment now. So stay tuned.
गोल्ड प्लस ऑप्टिमिस्टिक रिफ्लेक्टिव ग्लास लगाओ, धूप की गर्मी को दूर भगाओ और बिजली का बिल भी बचाओ।
फिनिस्टा विंडोज, ब्यूटीफुल एंड ड्यूरेबल डिजाइन्स, इंस्टॉलेशन से मेंटेनेंस की लाइफ लॉन्ग कस्टमर सर्विस। आपके घर में फिनिस्टा नहीं है तो कॉल कीजिए।
Find Finer Finesta.
The markets move fast.
And so should your portfolio. Expert insights, real-time stock picks.
Do I buy Ola?
Should I hold ICICI CDSL for the long term?
Buy, sell or hold.
The answers you need, straight from the experts.
Callers from India and across the world. Connect live.
All eyes are at this point on US President Donald Trump, who's expected to drop another tariff bombshell. Trump has warned that countries which side with the policies of the BRICS alliance, of which India is also a part, will be hit with an extra 10% tariff. The US had set a 9 July deadline for countries to agree on a trade deal, but US officials now say tariffs will begin on August 1st. Trump said he would send letters to countries telling them what the tariff rate will be if an agreement is not reached upon. Since taking charge of the Oval Office in January, Donald Trump has announced a series of import tariffs on goods from other countries, arguing they will boost American manufacturing and also protect jobs in the US. India and the US have been locked in a detailed negotiations for a bilateral trade agreement. These talks began after the US president hiked the tariff on India to 26% from the previous 10%. However, the Modi government has stated that it will prioritize national interest when it comes to the deal with the US as opposed to meeting a deadline. As per reports, India and the US are expected to strike a mini trade deal, which would then pave the way for broader discussions between the two partners. So what does the Trump's tariffs threat mean for India and the world? Joining me on the show tonight, Professor Andrew Latham is author and professor of political science at Macalester College, York University, USA. Gurcharan Das is an economist. We have Sierra Claire, professor and foreign policy commentator, joining me from Los Angeles. We'll be joined by Prameet Pal Chaudhary, who is the India practice head of Eurasia Group, in just a bit. Ms. Claire, let me begin with you. I mean, there are lots of talks around tariffs, a lot of anticipation as to what comes next, because, Donald Trump did throw up a surprise when he said that there'll be an extra tariff for all those countries who are part of the BRICS.
Yes. Well, I think that we've seen, the markets have cooled a little bit from when he first started these tariff negotiations back in April, and we had these really big up and down, changes in the market. And today we have seen a little dip here in the US, but it's nothing like it was. So people are kind of getting used to this negotiating process a little bit. And then as far as the BRICS nation goes, I think that Trump's main focus with that is protecting the US dollar as the world's reserve currency, which he rightfully is concerned about that for US national security interests, as well as for the rest of the world, because there could be cascading economic effects around the world. So I think that's his main interest there with that note that he had said that he was putting the extra 10% onto those BRICS nations.
Comment on this, Professor Latham. Your thoughts on this as Donald Trump announces a series of import tariffs on countries. Do you think this argument that this will boost American manufacturing and protect jobs and create more jobs, does it really work that way?
Well, I think he's being motivated by several contradictory impulses. On the one hand, he thinks tariffs are going to raise revenues. because he wants to reduce the income tax. And he harkens back to the early 20th century in that regard. Secondly, he thinks that they're bargaining leverage, that he can use these tariffs to beat other countries into concessions that favor the U.S. in terms of bilateral trade relations. And thirdly and distantly, and this is where it all becomes incompatible, he thinks that if he raises the tariff barriers high enough, companies from around the world will relocate within the United States to avoid paying tariffs. Those three things don't go together, and on any given day, in any given hour on any given day, Donald Trump is touting one of these three logics, and it doesn't make much sense. Slightly deeper than that, though, the American-led rules-based international order, which until 5 minutes ago was called the liberal international order, that the U.S. and a few other countries built after World War II, and that were globalized at the end of the Second World War, and nobody questioned. China didn't question it. India didn't question it. They're now being questioned by the global South, as it were, as manifest in this institution called the BRICS. And if they pull this off, de-dollarization will be a thing. But the entire trade order, which the United States both constructed and benefits from, will fracture, fragment, and possibly disappear into the clouds of history. And the Trump administration is arguably correctly fighting back against that. And I think we're going to see increasingly this tension, not quite a Cold War, but a tension between the BRICS nations and those that still subscribe to the American liberal/rules-based international order. Countries like India are caught in between. India is going to do a good deal, a mutually beneficial deal with the United States on trade bilaterally, but also belongs to the global South, also aspires to lead the global South, and is part of BRICS, and therefore is going to be subject to these tariffs unless and until a deal can be struck between India and the United States. I'm very optimistic about India. Brazil, China, Russia, and there's way more than just the BRICS countries. The acronym now would be like 27 letters long. There's lots of countries because it is the institutional manifestation of the global South. And the global South is rising up against the global North led by the United States. And it remains to be seen over time how that's going to play out.
Okay. That's actually very well put. So thank you so much. Let me bring in Gurcharan Das. Professor Das, the question here is, which are the sectors do you think will be hardest hit because of these tariffs here in India?
Well, the agriculture is what we have called our red line. And the reason why is quite obvious. We have half our population almost engaged in agriculture and dependent on it. But I think we are also making a mistake in the sense that I believe, the first green revolution was created by science, by these hybrid seeds that came from Mexico. The second green revolution has to be again created by science. We need to improve productivity. And what we have failed so far is that our productivity has not gone up, partly because we have got this religious, it's almost ideologues who are against genetically modified seeds. And if we give in to the US, for example, on GM soya, which is one of the things that they want, we should give in to that because it will benefit us in the end. In fact, we should relook at our entire agricultural strategy to turn it towards, look at the lesson we've learned from Sri Lanka. They followed that whole idea of organic farming, again, a religious ideological idea. And look what happened to them. They became a basket case within a year. So, but the real issue for India is that Mr. Trump is making us do what we should be doing in our own interest, which is to lower our tariffs, and we've been talking about it, to the ASEAN levels. Only then will we join up with the global supply chains, the global value chains as they're called, and there'll be hope for our manufacturing sector. Our manufacturing sector has been a failure. It employs only 11% of the people, represents only 15% of GDP, and represents only 2% of manufactured exports. So we've been shown the way by Apple. That's the way to go. we should go to the top labor-intensive FMCG FMCG brands in the world. They're all labor-intensive, Nike, etc., clothes, shoes, toys, food processing, all these are where we should be going. You know, when the Prime Minister of Vietnam heard that they had lost the iPhone to India, he flew to Cupertino, California, and he spoke to the CEO of Apple, and he said, look, we've lost the iPhone, give us the iPad. He got the iPad. Now, every chief minister who aspires to make his state an industrial state, you know, we have not, he should do that, go there, but we haven't created an industrial revolution, although we may be the fastest growing economy in the world today. We've grown, and we've grown well. We've grown at 6% over these last 30 years. But now, if we want to achieve the Viksit Bharat, it's got to be 7.3%. Therefore, trade policy, industrial policy, political policy, diplomatic policy, security policy, all have to be 7.3% economic growth is the minimum, and we can achieve it. And that's how we lift up
That's
the
an
people.
interesting point that has been made by economist Gurcharan Das on the show, that there's no need to fear per se. Perhaps the United States' new tariff policy is driving India in the right direction. What are your thoughts?
Sorry, is this aimed at me?
Yes, Mr. Chaudhary, that's a question to you, sir.
Yeah. So look, I think there's a number of issues here, but I think Gurcharan's position that we can use trade policy to push for internal reform, especially in agriculture, is well taken. Norman Borlaug, the father of the Green Revolution, he won a Padma Shri from us and a Nobel Prize from the rest of the world, was a strong supporter of genetic modification because he argued hybridization and the gene editing that we now use, for example, in our crops, with basically all forms of the same technology. So there was no real case for the ban on it. I think that is a good point. But we cannot do that, unfortunately, politically, under pressure from another country. We should be doing this on our own. But anyway, that is one issue there. I think the question on the tariffs issue, one, I don't think the BRICS tariff should be taken very seriously. Trump has said this before. Every time the word BRICS is mentioned to him, he says, oh, I'm going to hit them with a tariff if they do anything against America. And you may famously remember he thought Spain was a member of the BRICS, which it wasn't, at a press conference. He's not even clear which countries are a member of the BRICS. But he also said in his statement, if they carry out anti-American alignments, but within the BRICS, especially the 5 founding members, India and Brazil have been very clear internally that they do not want the BRICS to be anti-Western. They want it to be representative of emerging economies and potentially the global South, but they do not see it as an anti-Western organization, which is what Russia and China wanted to do. It was India and Brazil that killed the BRICS currency proposal when it came up. They were also the ones who killed the idea of a BRICS blockchain, which was designed to destroy the SWIFT payment system, again, a Russia-Chinese thing. So the American side knows full well that within the BRICS, India is one of the champions against de-dollarization, against the weaponization of the BRICS against the West. And that will continue to be a problem. If you look at the new members that are coming into the BRICS, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Egypt are military allies of the United States. Iran obviously will be hostile, but many of the other new members are very close to America and do not necessarily share this agenda. So that is something the BRICS will see how it evolves over a period of time. But the State Department and so on know full well the nature of the internal mechanism of the BRICS. What we are waiting for is Trump to announce the nature of the bilateral trade agreement with India, which at present is in trouble.
But Mr. Chaudhary, do you think that India has opened enough channels with other countries, particularly in Europe, to somehow neutralize if there is going to be an impact of what appears to be inevitable here?
So we will face a 10% baseline tariff from the United States, as will virtually every other country in the world. The question really is, what happens beyond the baseline, and what do you do about the so-called sectoral tariffs? In other words, the 40% on aluminium and steel, the 25% potentially on auto components, and so on and so forth. If the rest, when you talk to the Indian industry, their view is that if the rest of the world gets the same tariff, or more importantly, if our competitors get a higher tariff, and this means mainly China, then we can live with that. 10% baseline tariff is almost already absorbed because the rupee has devalued 8% against the dollar in the past 2 years. So we haven't effectively neutralized that 10% tariff anyway. The real issue, therefore, is what do other countries get? Second, you say that do we have alternative markets? Nothing can replace the United States. Not so much as industrial goods. We are not a major goods manufacturer, but look at it. Our fastest growing goods export right now, as Gurcharan correctly pointed to, was Apple iPhones. Who is the biggest buyer of Apple iPhones? It's the United States. Our main export to America is their own product, which is the iPhone. We are not a major agricultural exporter, and almost no other part of the world accepts agricultural exports from India of any real size and consequence, except for Africa and mainly the Middle East, which we already have perfectly good trade relations with. We are an exporter of auto components. Yes, again, it is America, and only America and Europe, which pick up some of that. And we are close to some kind of a trade agreement with Europe. But keep in mind that Europe is the most difficult market to sign an FTA with. We have been negotiating now for 22 years to get one with the Europeans. Yes, we probably get some kind of a basic early harvest agreement by December, but it'll not be an easy market to penetrate. The one country we cannot do an FTA with is China, and that is the world's second largest economy, but we cannot do that because they would destroy our economy along the way. So the Middle East has been our biggest regional market. We already have a perfectly sound, they have very low tariffs anyway, so we already have great market access. But keep in mind, America is India's overwhelmingly largest economic partner. It is our main source of FDI, it is our main source of FII, it is our main source of remittances, and it is our largest trading partner. It's one of the few countries in the world where we trade more with the United States than we do with China. So it's very difficult to replace America. So what we are looking for is to stabilize that relationship with coming through some kind of a trade agreement with the United States. At least that can last for the Trump administration. Keep in mind that nothing Trump does is treaty-based. It's not binding. It's probably only going to be executive orders because he does not have trade promotion authority from the Senate. And he'll never get it because it requires 2/3 of the senators, which he is nowhere close to getting. So whatever we do with Trump, we have to see it as a 2 to 3 year period window at best on the trade front.
All right, Mr. Chaudhary, really appreciate your time. Thank you, Ms. Claire, Gurcharan Das and Professor Latham for joining us on this broadcast. Shifting focus and in fact staying with US President Donald Trump, this time the US President Trump's Justice Department and FBI have concluded they have no evidence that convicted sex offender and disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein blackmailed powerful figures and kept a client list or was murdered. That's what the local media is reporting. In fact, the administration has released a video in both raw and enhanced versions that it says indicates no one entered the area of the Manhattan prison where Epstein was held the night he died in 2019. I'm leaving you with the story.
A stunning twist in a scandal that has haunted the highest echelons of power for years. After months of speculation, innuendo, and political crossfire, the United States Department of Justice has concluded that there is no evidence that convicted sex offender and disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein blackmailed influential people, kept a client list, or was murdered. While the findings have riled up many in the Make America Great Again camp who promoted conspiracy theories around Epstein's death, they also serve as a sharp rebuke to the allegations made by Elon Musk about former friend and US President Donald Trump. During the Tesla CEO's public fallout with Trump a few weeks ago, the former had accused the latter of being in the Epstein files. Musk then took a U-turn and deleted his posts on X, saying he went too far. However, questions persisted because the duo had been acquaintances in the 1990s. Epstein had even claimed that at one point he was Donald Trump's closest friend. But Trump had banned Epstein from his Florida residence before the financier's 2019 arrest after an incident involving a young woman. For Trump, long the target of media speculation and online conspiracy theories, this marks a moment of vindication. But questions remain about who knew what and when, and how deep did Epstein's influence truly run in America's corridors of power. With Vishal Vivek, Bureau Report, NDTV World.
And the star of India's Birmingham show, Shukman Gil, is clearly the talk of the town, not just because of his batting style, but a certain innerwear that he spotted while calling for declaration that raised eyebrows over potential breaches of brand agreements.
Shukman Gil, the attaboy of Indian cricket, had all cameras on him for every second of the match. The fans refused to take their eyes off the captain, and the camera zoomed in on him every time he made an appearance. So much so that this key moment has now become much talked about, not so much for the declaration but for his attire. Shukman chose an innerwear of Nike, a competitive brand of Adidas, Team India's apparel sponsor that is paying the board between 250 to 300 crore rupees for 5 years or 75 lakh rupees per match. This led to fans having fun on social media while questioning a possible breach. One said Nike just hijacked the biggest day of Shukman Gil's test career without spending a single rupee on BCCI sponsorship. And most people didn't even realize it. Here's how they pulled off the cleanest ambush marketing move of the year. Another saying Shukman Gil declares the innings and maybe his next big brand deal too. Adidas is on the jersey, but Nike stole the frame. They also spoke about his aura. Gil scored 430 runs in the test match and coming out with a Nike t-shirt to declare the innings when Adidas is the primary sponsor of the Indian cricket team. That is called aura. The captain himself posted this picture on his Instagram handle. According to the BCCI contract, players must wear the team kit during any public appearance which includes on-field or off-field. Though there is no such diktat on innerwears from a competitive brand like Nike, which Shukman Gil was seen in while declaring the innings. The Indian captain may not attract any sanction, but why must the Indian fans not have a little bit of fun? In New Delhi, Rika Roy for NDTV.
बदलाव की इच्छा रखने वाले लोग, उनको ये तय करना है कि वो जनसुराज जैसे नए विकल्प को चुनते हैं कि फिर पिटे पिटाए अपनी पुरानी व्यवस्था में जाना चाहते हैं।
मैं चिराग पासवान पूरी तरीके से बिहार विधानसभा का चुनाव लड़ने के लिए तैयार हूँ।
तेजस्वी जी मुख्यमंत्री बने हैं, हमारी पूरी सपोर्ट है उनको। हम किंग मेकर की भूमिका में रहना चाहते हैं।
ये लोग घर से बाहर नहीं निकल पाते। प्रधानमंत्री जी को बताना चाहिए कि इनका जो बिहार में जो सरकार है 50% जो नीतीश जी की मंत्रिमंडल में जो लोग बैठे हैं वो परिवारवादी लोग हैं। वो अपने आप को भी परिवारवादी बोले।
जंगल राज लाने वाले मौका देख रहे हैं, अपने पुराने कारनामे करने का मौका ढूंढ रहे हैं।
फिनेस्टा विंडोज, ब्यूटीफुल एंड ड्यूरेबल डिजाइन्स, इंस्टॉलेशन से मेंटेनेंस की लाइफ लॉन्ग कस्टमर सर्विस। आपके घर में फिनेस्टा नहीं है तो कॉल कीजिए।
Find Finer Finesta.
a 36-hour non-stop flight by a
1892.
small pack of B-2s. A lot of other aircraft were also involved, we know that. But let's talk about the B-2 flight itself. They took off from Missouri. 36 hours later, they landed back without once landing. They delivered their bombs 18 hours later over Iran and then came back. How was this possible? Because the Department of Defense says at no
Welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. Tensions are rising as the July 9th deadline looms for a crucial US-India trade deal, with President Trump threatening an additional 10% tariff on BRICS nations, including India, for aligning with what he calls anti-American policies. The announcement, made via Truth Social, that's a social media platform, follows the BRICS summit in Rio, where leaders criticized US tariffs as trade disruptive. Now, India's negotiating team has been racing to secure a deal protecting key sectors like textiles and pharma. Will India strike a balance or face steeper levies? We could get a deal with the US, possibly a mini deal anytime now. Why now? Because it's from 9:30 p.m. IST, that's about half an hour back, that America started the process of announcing trade deals or announcing tariffs, as the case may be. And they've already started doing that with a country as big as Japan, a very major trading partner of theirs. Will there be an announcement of an India trade deal? That's what America wants, that's what India wants, but we haven't apparently quite reached 100% consensus on that. That's what we are waiting to see. Let's go straight across to NDTV's Disha Bakshi. But before we go across to her, let's just listen in to what the US President is saying right now. Bring you the latest on that entire Japan situation in a little while from now, but 25% tariffs announced there. But as we get set for more details, perhaps with the big announcement, we still don't know. What we can do is track what the big India issues are. Remember, it's a big announcement by Trump. The first tariff letters are now being issued. He's imposed a 25% tariff on Japan. He's imposed a 25% tariff on South Korea. We still don't know about India as yet. So we'll look at that in a moment, but let's start with this. What exactly is India looking for in this situation? What the US wants is access to India's dairy and agricultural products. That's what America wants. But India's got concerns. Traffic concessions on agricultural goods for India is a big no-no. We want to protect the interests of our farmers. We'll get into why. One of the reasons is that the average Indian farm is 1 hectare in size. A US farm is 187 hectares. It's the small farmer that India seeks to protect from a flood of American agricultural or dairy items which might have a huge impact on them. Another point of concern for India is America's genetically modified crops. Remember, we have legal concerns on the presence of GM crops here in India. Again, one of the reasons for that is the need to protect our own farmers and our traditional way of agriculture. And so New Delhi wants to be focused on protecting farmers. So to have GM crops, so genetically modified crops, is an issue for New Delhi. So those are some of the key issues which are problematic. But let's go on to the next set of points which could actually work. This is something which I suggest, I dare say, could be a win-win. America wants whiskey, cars, and subsidies to be slashed. There is a good possibility of India actually going ahead and saying that, look, that is something that might happen. But India is focused on finding a middle ground. So it's not as if everything that America suggests is automatically going to be accepted by India. What will that middle ground be? And would that be a mini deal ahead of a mega deal, which might happen later on? We don't know. So mini deal, it would still be a game changer for India if we reduce tariffs on certain areas, allow America greater access into our market, and India then benefits a great deal as well. But let's get a little bit more specific in terms of the India-US trade deal, what India will not budge on. Now remember,